Tom, you said that that area is forested. Isn't there concern about losing all those trees?
Yeah, that was a big concern. Yeah, trees. Trees, and there was a lot of discussion about deer population because they're going to get displaced. NRS Services out of Harrisville did a pretty good study where they tried to quantify the effects on the environment and flora and fauna, and they had some good points about how coyotes will they're going to raise the fence up. Coyotes will get in, they're going to do the pollinator planting to try to promote, that aspect of it. All the fox, the smaller critters are going to get in there, except deer, and they could jump a fence, but it's not likely. That fence is that high. But it's something that people were concerned about, exactly, the trade-off with the trees that you're losing on the property. There's no doubt about it.
I'm curious. Oh, go ahead, Mary. I'm sorry. It's a 43 megawatt, you said, so that has to be 5 contiguous projects, right?
It's actually 9 different projects.
And is that the way that map was? Is that those lines?
Every color, there were 9 different colors, right? And I think that was the intent to try to kind of maybe the EFSB review is going to happen no matter how much you cut it up. I think that's the point of that. I don't know what the intention was. And you can only have 40 without going to the EFSB too. So maybe both things happen to that one.
It's not a question back there. I was talking about this all the time. I was just curious, was there any exploration of non-forested areas to displace the same sizing, in the town at all? On areas that have been, where that old little diner used to be, stuff like that.
Well, we did the landfill site is one of those.
Okay.
King Solar's forested. There was not a request to, let's say, when the petition was filed with the town, the application that is green development, with the big solar one, there wasn't this push to say, let's break this up and try to find other areas with it. You only have so much time as a planner to certify applications, and this is the thing about siting, right? I mean, in our town, I should have mentioned this, solar arrays require a special use permit also. So every single one of these has to go before the zoning board, and you have your public hearing there too, as you do with planning. But because it's allowed in every zoning district, it's anywhere that a private property owner can strike a deal with a developer, as long as it's 3-phase power, I guess. And the key is that the solar farms are not supposed to be visible to surrounding properties. Believe it or not, as big as that site is on north of Iron Mine Hill Road, you can't see it from anywhere. It's unbelievable. It's set back 600 feet from Iron Mine Hill Road, and there's a 20-acre swamp north of that, and it's bound by the 3 utility rights-of-way on the west, the north, and the east side. Initially, when the developer's attorney had petitioned the town to amend our zoning to create the overlay, it was much bigger. It was within a mile of the 2 substations that are in town, both on Greenville Road, actually. And so it kept getting smaller as an overlay as we went through the hearings, and finally it got to the point where I'm looking at the aerial photograph, and you can see the 345 kW grid line goes right there, and on the other side, I said, just make it within that. So at least it's within 3 sides of the power lines, and that's it. Ultimately passed, but yeah, it's being a planner for this stuff. You feel like you're flying by the seat of your pants. I mean, it's just I learned that in Hopkinton they've got 16 of these done and another 19 in the works. It's amazing. Yeah.
Other questions? Erica, there's an awful lot of acreage in Rhode Island in several different places that's already been cleared and is basically underused, and that's the airport clear zones. Has anyone looked at putting solar power panels in airport clear zones?
I'm not actually familiar with exactly what airport clear zones
That's
are.
where the area where the planes will come in. You don't want to have people living really close to the airport. So there are acres and acres around all of the airports in Rhode Island with nothing on them.
I don't know who owns that land. I will say,
It'll
as
be the
part
Rhode
of
Island Airport Corporation. not just TF Green, it's North Central and
There is no
Westerly.
plan in the state where solar's gonna go,
Yeah.
is the answer.
Yeah, I mean,
It seems like a
Whatever
no-brainer.
developer wants is what the planners have to deal with.
But this is already state-owned land.
I mean,
And I've got
that's
this-
definitely, we hope that, I mean, one good thing is that regardless of what happens with the piece of legislation at the State House, OER is going forward with its renewable energy implementation plan, and that includes how the state proposes and recommends to cite how much renewable energy and what sources of renewable energy, and that includes not just solar but offshore wind, which is really a burgeoning area, and that's really good for the onshore issues that we're having. Is it the only solution, offshore wind? We should be looking at all parcels of land, and we hope that the OER study does that. That's the intent of it. That was a portion, that was one of the provisions in the legislation that was stripped out on the Senate side. OER is going ahead with that study anyway on a pretty accelerated timeline, and so I am hopeful that that study will yield some pathways that look at where to put these installations, as opposed to just, we have renewable energy targets, go for it. So we should be looking at those parcels. It often is much more complicated than just, there is a parcel of land, put solar there. A lot of people talk about carports, let's put them everywhere. It is more complicated than just putting carports everywhere. It is a lot more complicated than just putting solar on rooftops, in part because of cost, in part because of ratepayers covering costs. So we could solve and put carports and rooftops, and we would have a room full of people saying, my electricity bill just shot up, I don't want to pay for this, why don't you get the least cost? And that's a large forested parcel that can easily be clear cut. So it's a very complicated issue with lots of different facets to it, which is why the stakeholder process has taken so long and why we have not yet, we again think that the consensus bill takes steps in the right direction, but we may not see that pass.
Right. What's the analysis on that?
It's pretty clear that solar projects are much more beneficial in terms of transitioning us away from fossil fuels. The carbon, the bang for your buck in terms of carbon is much greater with solar arrays. That said, there is a carbon benefit to forests. Personally, the stakeholder group and I personally, the value to forests goes well beyond the carbon benefit, and that's why we are looking at strategies to protect forests and our green spaces from all types of development, not just solar, but housing development. And again, that's complicated because we want some housing development in some areas to address housing shortages. So if you were just looking at carbon, we should have solar panels. But forests, we all know, are extremely valuable for many, many reasons.
Right.
I'll just answer Bob's question for anybody that's interested. I agree with that there's a lot of, much more to consider than just carbon. But if you look at EPA's data, an acre of solar would produce about 200 times more carbon reduction than an acre of forest here in New England. So it's a large number in terms of carbon.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. Any other great questions in the room? Okay. Well, thank you to our speakers. All right. Before the reception continues and you enjoy dessert and coffee, I have 3 asks of you all before you head off. One of them, as listed in your program booklet, are our bills, our policy priorities. A lot of them are struggling to move forward and are struggling to be voted out of committee. So our voice does count, so contact your legislators if you haven't already and urge them to act on these bills and to vote them out of committee. The second is, as I mentioned during my opening remarks, we are still looking for officers, a VP of Treasurer and possibly a secretary later on. So if you're interested in getting involved, maybe not this very night, starting this very night, but later on throughout the year, I would welcome just to start that conversation if you're interested, or if you know of anyone who might be interested in serving on our executive board. I would love to start talking with them. And third, ECRI has been doing a phenomenal job in managing our events calendar, what grows on Rhode Island, which you can all access from the Environment of Rhode Island's website. So it's been on the ECRI website. We've all enjoyed it. We've benefited. We can all access and post and share our events. And we actually need about $1,000 to keep that calendar going throughout the year. So if you have not yet donated to our GoFundMe campaign, Keep What Grows on Rhode Island Going, please do. I believe that Greg circulated a link and more information about that, but you're welcome to talk to Greg or Sue about that tonight. Those are my 3 asks. Thank you all very much.